This morning, President Trump is waking up and going after the California Governor Gavin Newsom once again, posting on social media about the ongoing protests against his ramped up immigration raids and the unrest that followed. Newsom is now taking the president to court over Trump going around him and sending in thousands of National Guard and hundreds of Marines, a move that the governor of California calls a direct assault on democracy and an abuse of power. At the center of this is this back and forth fight and escalating tension between these two leaders. Harry Enten's taking a look at this back and forth. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's just start off. If Gavin Newsom wanted to take on Donald Trump and loves the attention, he has 100% gotten it. Take a look here. Google searches of Gavin Newsom with Donald Trump. Get this up. 9,700% versus a week ago. More folks are Googling Gavin Newsom's name with Donald Trump than ever before in Google searches dating all the way back since 2004. Donald Trump was able to make a name for himself through The Apprentice, through all of his business ventures. He is now making a name for Gavin Newsom, who seems more than willing to relish in this fight.
What are the numbers, and how can you kind of gauge why Newsom would see, if we're taking this purely political, why Newsom would see benefit in taking on Trump?
Yeah, why is it that Gavin Newsom is more than willing to take on Donald Trump? And, you know, it's all about 2028, and it's all about where Democrats want their candidates to be. Should Democrats oppose Donald Trump more? Among Democrats, look at this, 84%. 84% of Democrats nationwide say they want Democrats to take on Donald Trump more. This is not 2017 anymore, where the majority of Democrats want to compromise with Donald Trump. No, they want a fighter with Donald Trump. And at this particular point, that is a big reason why Gavin Newsom, in my opinion, at least politically speaking, is leaning into this fight, because he is thinking ahead to the future. He's thinking ahead to 2028. And with a vast majority, look, you rarely get 84% of Democrats to agree on anything except for the dislike of Donald Trump. And that is what we see right now. They want that opposition of Donald Trump. And that is why Gavin Newsom seems to be more than willing to take him on.
In the wildly too early, likely unreliable look at where things stand for the 2028 race, where is Newsom?
Yeah, this is so important to point out. Where is this race right now? The top chances to be the 2028 nominee. Look, it's a clown car at this particular point. All these candidates squished together, but you'll notice that one name is ahead of the rest, and that's Gavin Newsom at 12%. You see Ocasio-Cortez 10, Buttigieg 10, Shapiro 6%. But Gavin Newsom certainly is up there right now in terms of the candidates who are best in position to get that 2028 nomination. And he knows that the best way to get this 2028 nomination is, again, to oppose Donald Trump, that 84% of Democrats who want it. And at this particular point, he's getting all that attention, as we see in those Google searches, up 9,700% versus a week ago, Newsom with Donald Trump.
And what it also, of course, will come down to going forward is not just taking him on, but how effective you are, which is what we'll see amongst all of those people that are on that list. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
Gavin Newsom offering a blunt warning for his state of California and beyond in response to the Trump administration's deployment of troops to Los Angeles, and also the president's threats to arrest the governor himself.
This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived.
Newsom's remarks coming in the wake of a federal judge denying his request to stop the deployment of National Guard troops to L.A. without his approval.
These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere.
The situation in California is yet another test for a Democratic Party still grappling with how to take on Donald Trump and specifically how to address immigration. Joining me to discuss, Sabrina Rodriguez, national political reporter at The Washington Post, Charlie Dent, former Pennsylvania congressman, and Jaime Moore, former DNC official. It's good to see all of you this morning. As we look at where things stand in this moment, even the Wall Street Journal referring to Gavin Newsom as the leader of the opposition, I'm curious, as we look at this time, do you think Newsom is meeting the moment here? Is he the person to push back against Donald Trump effectively?
Is that question to me?
No, Charlie, it wasn't, but I'm going to bring you in after. Jaime, that was for you.
Look, I think regardless of what
people say. He is the governor of California, and California is on the hot seat right now. So I think for, Governor Newsom sees this as an opportunity for him to be the guy who is the anti-Trump, the guy who is the leader of the Democratic Party. And so I think for a lot of Democrats and a lot of independents, I think they're sick of hearing the politics of it all. They're sick of hearing who's going to be the leader, who's going to be the voice. I think they want effective leadership. This is real life stuff. Immigration, particularly in California right now, is real life. So I think Democrats, instead of looking for a fighter, they want to have a leader who's going to move things forward, not get into petty fights with the president.
And yet, Sabrina, we are seeing some of the back and forth, which is not unexpected, of course, in this moment. Senator John Fetterman saying that Democrats are losing the moral high ground in his view when they don't condemn violence amid protests in Los Angeles. Then you have the pushback from Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez saying she's calling out ISIS, quote, consistently illegal activity and accusing the president of invoking a chaotic situation for political gain. There is never going to be just one voice here. Is there evidence that Democrats, though, Sabrina, are able to coalesce around a message in this moment?
I mean, that's the ongoing struggle for Democrats right now. You see President Trump, this is a fight that he has been itching to have, since he was on the campaign trail last year. He has long targeted, Democratic state governors, particularly Gavin Newsom in California, on the issue of immigration and crime. On the campaign trail, those are two that he spoke about very much, and they're two that polling show Democrats have really struggled with in the last year, and especially with the way that Trump talked about it on the campaign trail and really ramped up voters around this message that he was going to bring law and order and this message that he was going to crack down on immigration. Now it's sort of been hit with reality, and you see these competing narratives, based off of social media, just looking at the difference between, the commentary that's happening on X while you see what's happening on the more liberal platform Blue Sky. I mean, there's two very dueling messages about what is happening in Los Angeles right now. And I think Democrats are grappling with the reality that a lot of folks at home are seeing images of disorder, even if these demonstrations are largely peaceful. How do you talk about it in a way where you focus on condemning violence, you focus on parts of the immigration message that you disagree with? It just puts Democrats really in a defensive position that they've really struggled with.
And there's also, Charlie, when we look at this, I thought Juliet put it, I'm not sure if you all could hear Juliet Kayyem at the top of the show, but she talked about, Gavin Newsom is also talking about this message of immigration, right? And that's what you're seeing from the protesters. This is about immigration coming from the Trump side. As she sees it, this is a message about power. How do you square those two, Charlie, in a way that's effective if you are, in fact, looking to push back about the way President Trump is using his power?
Well, first, we have to distinguish that these ICE officers who are doing these raids, it's okay to protest, but ICE is not the enemy. What these protesters are upset with is the policy that is directing ICE. So we have to separate this out. So when people are throwing objects at ICE officers, they're throwing things at law enforcement, people who are simply doing their jobs. You might not like the job they're doing, but they're doing their jobs. And I feel like watching all this, that maybe Gavin Newsom should have gotten out in front of this earlier. Why not just mobilize the National Guard? I agree that bringing in the Marines is overkill. It's wrong. Posse comitatus it would be a huge issue here. But why not get out in front of this? Because I think what Donald Trump wants, he wants to create this inflammatory situation. He sees the 2020 riots all over again. And frankly, that actually helped him. He nearly won re-election in part because of those riots. And so I think in many respects that Trump sees 2020 and he wants to look strong. He wants the Democratic governors and mayors to look weak, that they won't mobilize the National Guard. And like I said, I think it's okay to mobilize the National Guard. You don't have to necessarily deploy them, but you can have them at the ready and try to preempt Donald Trump. I don't think this is a very smart move on behalf of Gavin Newsom right now.
When we look at what we're hearing from voices on Capitol Hill, Gavin Newsom also calling out Congress, saying they've abdicated, saying Speaker Johnson's abdicated his duties. It was interesting, Senator Susan Collins of Maine telling CNN, I'm quoting her here, active duty forces are generally not to be involved in domestic law enforcement operations. Sabrina, is there an expectation based on some of your sources, folks that you're speaking to, that we will hear from more Republicans weighing in on this?
Right now, what we've seen from Republicans is largely co-signing what the president is doing because of the images that are coming out of Los Angeles and them sort of signing on to the messaging that, you know, order needs to be placed in Los Angeles, that it is out of control, that, you know, the mayor, Karen Bass, that Governor Newsom are not, you know, getting things under control, and that's why President Trump had to step in. Some are clearly, you know, avoiding just talking about it, but largely it doesn't seem that we're going to hear much pushback from Republicans against the president on this front.